We are recording.
Okay.
Okay. Is it working on your side?
Yeah, it says you're recording.
Okay, good. So, can you introduce yourself?
Yes. I am Kimberly Collins. I'm a single mom of two. I was raised in a Christian home, in a Southern Baptist home specifically. And I was, for the majority of my life, put in a very fundamental Christian school. And then up until recently, I was pretty much participating in witchcraft and paganism. And so I kind of thought, that the Bible was just a hypocritical book written by delusional, psychotic men, basically.
Okay. So I'm just wondering, did you know that you were practicing like witchcraft and did you say how do you say it? Paganism?
Paganism.
Did you know, or was it just like something you were doing and then you found out later, like, oh, this is what it is?
No, I knew. I knew, and I was purposely doing it. So, yeah, I did.
Okay. I just wasn't sure because so like after, and we'll get deeper into this so listeners will like know what I'm talking about. But so Kimberly has a YouTube channel and she's posted her testimony and she's posted one other video, right? So
yes.
far.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So far.
And she's talked about some things that she was practicing that I practiced too. And I what I didn't know that they were like considered witchcraft or anything else.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I was wondering.
Yeah, I knew. The pagan part, not so much. I really didn't know there was much of a name for what I was practicing, but yes, the witchcraft part, I totally knew that I was involved in that. But a lot of people aren't diverse on, knowledge on multiple religions, so you don't even know that like it might be a Hindu practice or a pagan practice or whatever. So yeah.
What can you give like an example of what pagan is, or just like a brief summary? Because I'm not really sure.
So some of the pagan practices is like believing in multiple gods or believing in, and I'm going to butcher this because I haven't really looked into it too much, but, like I know that some of the stuff I was practicing, like, some of the rituals, like maybe manifestation, is a part. Although I think a lot of religions practice stuff like that, because even Christianity, like in the Bible, it talks about the word manifest is used in the Bible, but the meaning is different cross religions. So, it's just different stuff like that I said paganism for more people to understand what I was doing, because that's more of a diverse thing than saying New Age, because nobody understands what New Age is.
Right. So yeah, that's was a totally new term. When you were talking about it, I was like, what is New Age? And then I started looking it up and I was like, oh, like New Age is like everything that is mainstream, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's what exactly. It seems like. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So what was interesting to me is like you talked about meditation. You said like meditation is fine as long as it's like scriptures from the Bible or it's not, but we're taught like to clear your mind.
Right.
So I thought that was really interesting. And it's really like listening, like watching your YouTube video, even though you have 2 up so far, I'm just like really becoming aware. Like when I do things, I'm like, where is this coming from? Like, why am I doing it? And like, does it have, is it like, am I involving God in whatever I'm doing? So
yeah. And so like one of the big things, and I've got it written down here somewhere so I wouldn't forget about it, but so one of the big things, like in the Bible, there's a verse in 1 John 4:1-3, talking about test the spirit that you encounter, and how you test the spirit is to test, to see if they claim that Jesus came in the flesh. I can say it verbatim, but it says, "Do not believe every spirit, but test the spirits to see whether they come from God. For many false prophets have gone out into the world," aka like psychics. And here's how you know if the spirit is from God. Every spirit that confesses that Jesus Christ has come in the flesh is of God, and every spirit that does not confess Jesus is not from God. If the spirit is not from God, it comes from the spirit of the Antichrist, which is already in the world. So right there, the Bible is warning us about, like, there are spirits who come and influence our life. And another Bible verse that talks about Satan himself disguises himself as a beam of light. And how often do you hear that in these mainstream practices, that there's these beams of light that are our spirit guides? And I mean, verbatim, it's like the same word used in the Bible. He disguises himself as a beam of light, and then these people who have spirit guides as a beam of light. And so that really sticks out to me.
Do you think also that's connected to when people talk about being enlightenment?
Yes, and I don't know is what I would say, because I didn't dive really deep into the actual description of being enlightened. I personally, when I was practicing this stuff, I would call myself enlightened, or said that I had like a spiritual awakening, because I finally figured out these spirit guides, and I figured out like the whole manifestation and everything. So that is, and I don't know if that's the right way of being enlightened, but that's what I called it. So yes, and I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Do you want to talk about what pulled you away from being a Christian?
Yeah, so it was a slow fade. I didn't even know that I was being pulled away from being a Christian. Basically, my divorce is kind of what started it. I was really bitter. And so on the weekends, or whenever my kids would go to their dad's house, I would consume my time with partying to buy the time of while they're gone, because otherwise I would just sit and cry the whole weekend. And so when I was partying, then I'm hungover on Sunday, so I don't want to go to church. And that just started, next thing I know, for 6 months, I haven't been to church. And next thing I know, I'm starting to question everything, and starting to seek my own understanding, like figuring out things with like just experiences rather than truth. So that's kind of how it all started.
Okay. And then how did you get into New Age practices?
That one. So I started hanging out with a friend who did tarot card readings. And I was really only hanging out with her to use her weed, to be honest. And so, because she was like, she would always let me smoke her stuff. So I was like, I'm going to go hang out with her. So, so I would go hang out with her, and she would talk about the tarot cards and the crystals and yada, yada. And I guess like my phone picked up on it, because my suggested stuff for like YouTube started being like tarot card readings, and tarot card readings for Gemini, because I'm a Gemini. And then once I started watching those, it was just my YouTube feed was one thing after another of learning more and more and getting more and more into these practices. And that's how it started.
Okay. And see, that's another thing. I'm so like, right now I'm in this phase where I'm questioning everything I'm doing. So I don't know what I believe right now. Like, I know I believe in God. Like, I know that. And that's where I'm at right now. And like, I just started reading the Bible. But like, since I watched your video, like, I have tarot cards, and whenever I would pull a tarot card, I would always just ask for guidance from God, not thinking about anything else other than just like God. But then after like I watched your video, I'm like, what if I'm not asking the right, I don't know, like, you know what I mean? So are tarot cards like always like does the Bible talk about them, or are they just like, what do you know about them? Do you know?
So I know that those are one of the things that, so when you really immerse in the Bible, you'll see that God doesn't work that way. And he doesn't work through tarot cards. He doesn't work through, you know, well, that's the wrong way to say. But he doesn't work through cards. He never has, he never will. And so there's a lot in the Bible about witchcraft. You know, you can even Google Bible verses about witchcraft and what the Bible has to say about it and really dig deep into it. But one of the main things is the Bible also says that to know the truth comes by hearing, and by hearing the gospel. And the gospel is the New Testament of the Bible. So like Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, all of those. And that is really going to be a good guide for figuring out the truth. Because it's almost like what I think of, like a light bulb goes off when you have heard the gospel and you understand it by that point. That's when almost like a light clicks and you can then, you know, see truth and not just be confused, because Satan confuses us, not God. Confusion will never be of God. It's laid out plain and clear in the Bible. So, you know, it's the tarot cards I'm against. I think that it's a witchcraft practice. It's always been a witchcraft practice, and I don't participate in it anymore.
Yeah. Okay. And also talking about the Testament. So my Bible, it has Old Testament and New Testament. I'm reading the Old Testament. Am I like wasting my time, or should I read it still?
So the Old Testament can feel very dry. There's a lot in there that doesn't make sense unless you have some guidance with maybe somebody who is theologically knowledgeable. So for instance, some stuff in the Old Testament you might read and be like, what the crap did I just read? But when you actually dive into the theology of the history of that time point they were in, the language it was written in, all of those factors, you'll actually come to find out that the Old Testament is a lot of prophecy of the New Testament. And it also has prophecy for our day and time right now. So, for instance, just the other day, I was going through Daniel 8, which is in the Old Testament. And Daniel was given prophecies to not only predict what we're about to go through in the end times of the earth now, but he also predicted all of the events like Alexander the Great, and I can't say his name, and he another ruler who was absolutely horrific. There's one story in history. These are all it's history. It's mainstream history, and it was predicted in the Bible. But people don't understand that unless you dive into the theology background of it. Like Alexander the Great is described as a great horn, like, and it even I think it's funny that he uses the term a great horn because he's Alexander the Great, and it describes what he does during his reign. And so then you look at mainstream history, and he predicted Alexander the Great before he ever happened. And then this other ruler, one of the things he did was he banned circumcision for all Jews. And so this one mother, she decided, I don't care what this ruler says, I'm going to follow what God says. And the circumcision it was back then is not what we have in America. It's not that brutal crap. I didn't even put my son through that. But so she decided to go circumcise her son. That ruler found out about it. I've got it in my Bible, but I don't have my Bible with me here. I can't remember his name. But when he found out that she circumcised her son, he murdered the son and made her wear the son around her neck for like a few days or a few weeks or something. And that's the kind of ruler he was. And then Daniel goes on to say in his prophecies that that ruler is not near as bad as the ruler who's about to come in the end times, the Antichrist. He's going to be 1,000 times worse than that ruler. So stuff like that in the Old Testament. But the New Testament has a lot of the gospel of what Jesus did here on earth, and then some bits and pieces of prophecy for our day and time now. Like I can just give you a couple examples. The peace treaty that was just done in Israel, predicted in the New Testament. The complete destruction of Damascus, one world currency, and then the mark of the beast, which I find this really interesting. The mark of the beast is, the Bible says it has to be in your right hand or in your forehead. And then I go in a scientific Googling, and so they are coming out with these microchips that will contain all of your medical history, who you are. You'll be able to buy and sell stuff with the chip. And then the scientists, the engineers discovered that the only places in the body for the microchip to not overheat is your right hand and your forehead. And it's exactly what's predicted in the Bible.
Oh, wow. Wow,
Yeah.
that's great. And that's in the New Testament.
Yes. And there's bits and pieces in the Old Testament. I'm sure you could probably find some stuff, research some stuff of the theology of all the prophecies in the Bible. But yeah, most of it's in the New Testament, especially Revelations. You can find a lot of it in Revelations.
Okay. Wow, you're blowing my mind. You're teaching me so much. Okay, so you've given examples of New Age practices so far. So I guess I for my next question was give one example of a New Age practice people may do in their normal life and may not even realize it is a part of the New Age. Do you have any ones that we haven't discussed? Because I know we've talked about a few because we talked about how like New Age practice is basically mainstream at this point.
Yeah, so it actually, the way that I feel that people fall into New Age practices, it is they actually take a little bit of truth and a little bit of terminology to confuse you enough to get you into it. So, for instance, like we hear so many words in mainstream everything, like karma, meditation, manifestation, talking about your energy healing, chakras, mantras, aura, anything to do with astrology, anything that has to do with the spirit realm, like I was saying earlier, or I don't remember if I said it actually already, but like talking about, how we joke about having like a good angel on one side and a bad angel on the other side. And, there's stuff like that we have in our daily life. And even stuff like the crystals and the hypnosis, all of that junk. Everybody, I think anyone you talk to has heard these terms before, whether they've practiced them or not. And it's in our language so much that it makes it so easy to fall into practicing those things. And it's not a bad thing, like I told you in the past, it's not a bad thing to practice meditation, but the Bible says to meditate on the word of God, not just empty your brain. And there's also, I've got a few examples of like New Age terminology and beliefs that are actually creeping into churches. For instance, there's this dude who started a church. It's a mega church called Elevation. His name's Stephen Furtick. In a recent sermon that he did back in May, it was called Focus on the Fruits. And 10 minutes and 40 seconds into the sermon, he literally says, and I quote this, he said, God is energy. God is a spirit. God is a molecular structure that fills all. And then goes on to say that the molecular structure comes to us when we call to him, which is exactly a New Age belief about calling on your spirit guides. But that's not biblical at all, because even in, for example, Psalm 139, that right there talks about how God is omnipresent. He's not a molecular structure that comes to us when we call to him. He's everywhere all the time, period, the end. So it's creeping into churches with sayings like that. And then there's other things like Bethel Church. They are also a school that teaches you how to use their Christian tarot cards to do what they call prophecy, but it's actually to be a psychic. And they go to psychic conventions as Christian psychics, and they will like witness, but in actuality what they're doing is telling the future of people and saying that you need our spirit guide, our God. But that's not biblical at all, to be doing psychic readings with tarot cards. The Bible actually condemns that. And there's one more. There's these other people, T.D. Jakes and Joel Osteen. There's many people I could name with that, but they preach stuff that's like the prosperity gospel, which basically is like New Age practice of manifestation, basically saying that you can ask God to provide anything for you, and if you have enough faith, you're going to get it, which is manifestation. And even, so I have somewhere in here in my notes, but there's a verse where Satan does this to Jesus. He takes him up on the mountain, and here it is, 1 Corinthians 11:14. Oh, nope, that's the wrong one. Luke 4:5-7. It says, and he said to him, Satan said to Jesus, I will give you authority and splendor. Everything that has been given to me, I can give to anyone I want to. If you worship me, it'll all be yours. So basically, Satan, when he was cast out of heaven, was given all the power on the earth, basically everything earthly. And that's what manifestation is, calling on these spirit guides that are essentially fallen angels, and they will give you anything earthly. But the Bible tells us not to be of the world, not to consume the worldly things that we want with our human nature. Says to store up our treasures in heaven, to do good works for eternity, not for here on earth. So preachers like that, the Joel Osteen, T.D. Jakes, those type of people who preach this prosperity gospel, they're actually preaching a sugared version of New Age and calling it Christianity, when it's not biblically sound at all. So that's it creeping into everyone's lives.
Yeah. Wow. I didn't realize that. And also, do you know much about, and I'm sure you probably do, the Unitarian Universalist churches? Do you know much about those?
I don't. I
You
haven't
don't?
looked into them much, no.
Because when I was looking up, like, when I was looking up like New Age and like trying to do research and stuff, it those kind of churches came up, and it's interesting because that is the church that I like used to go to.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and like they do read from the Bible and stuff, but it's more based on educating about people that are here, like Henry Wadsworth Longfellow and stuff like that. Like they educate about people that have been here, or like I don't know how to explain it. And then like one time like they gave a bunch of rocks out, and then you like put your problems into the rock and then give it back to them, and I'm like, I don't know, like I just don't know anything.
That's kind of like a witchcraft practice, actually, is to put that energy into something else that you release. That is, yeah, totally not biblical, not biblically sound at all. And that is a New Age practice.
Okay, that's what I was thinking. And then I wanted to go back to astrology. So you like mentioned you're a Gemini. And then you mentioned how astrology is part of like New Age. And then also there is this girl that I follow online, and she was talking about how astrology isn't even accurate anyways, because there's like a 13th or an extra astrology sign that we don't even talk about, which I didn't know. Do you know much about that? Is that like all New Age stuff, or is that something?
I think astrology has again a little bit of truth with enough to make people fall into it. So for instance, like the description of a Gemini is spot on me. I totally fit the description. But So, we know from science, and I believe it's somewhere in the Bible too, how the moon, even the energy from the moon affects the waves. So it's the same thing for like living here on the, living beings. We're affected by the sun, we're affected by the moon. We are affected by things in that